Talo for Lava, and welcome back, y'all, to the Growing Samoan Podcast. I'm your host, Henry Willie, DJ Hen, Uncle Hen, all that good stuff. The journey continues, my friends. The journey continues. And what a beautiful, journeyful day it is today as you get to listen to an awesome episode. So, today's episode is actually us being interviewed on another podcast by another fellow Samoan. So, with that being said, talo falava, aloha, malolele, yorana, bulavinaka, kiora, and hello. Greetings to everybody. So, check it out, you guys. So, this was an honor to be on another Samoan podcast because we have a feeling that this is growing and I've always had a feeling that growth takes time, and I knew that my feeling was this that something like our podcast is going to take time to grow. And we know it's still early, but the momentum of where it's going to is just a remarkable thing to witness. And I'm thankful that for you guys, the listeners that are listening to this podcast live as it airs, you guys are able to witness the beginning stages of our community in the podcast space, Samoan community, and how it helps out and can help out everybody, one way or another. So this episode is a very, very special one for me because what this guy is doing, and if for his interviewing of us, is something that I love, that I truly believe can help out so many people in our lifetime. And his name is Heinz. He will be interviewing me and Tala. Oh, what's up, Tala? Hey, Tala. I forgot to say my beautiful co-host, Tala. She's not here right now. I'm just doing this intro, but she will be in the interview. As the interview is me and Tala being on the FT podcast, hosted by Heinz. So the FT podcast is a great way for you podcasters that if you want to start a podcast and you want to spread the word, the FT podcast is perfect because what Heinz does is he promotes other podcasters. And I talked with him, and we have the same feeling about podcasting. That if you have something that you want to talk about and you're good at, you're great at, and you just want to voice it out, hey, start a podcast. Start a podcast. Start a podcast, and then jump on the FT podcast because he'll promote you. With that being said, today's episode has some great information for everybody. I hope you guys take away bits and pieces and use it in your lives. We are being interviewed by Heinz on his podcast, and I highly suggest that each and every one of you guys go down to the bottom of the show notes. I am going to leave the link to the FT podcast. Click on the link, subscribe to his podcast, and also play this episode on his podcast again, because on this episode of Growing Samoan, I will only be playing the interviewing part, but on his podcast he has a beautiful intro about other Polynesian Islander podcasters, Pacific Islander podcasters. He has great information about if you feel like starting a podcast, how does it feel to be a podcaster. There's just a ton of stuff. He gives shout outs to a lot of podcasters, and it's just extra information that you won't be able to hear on this podcast. So if you want to hear a lot of more about Heinz and the FT podcast, yeah, just go click on the link and listen to that also. In the beginning part, he has a great intro, man. Big ups to you, man, Heinz. I love what you're doing, man. Spreading the word. I hope you guys enjoy this podcast episode. And with that being said, my friends, keep growing, keep growing, keep growing. And we're going to dive into that episode right now.
This is episode 4 of the FT podcast. I just wanted to introduce our guests for this episode. They currently have a podcast and a YouTube channel. They already have 20 episodes, and you can find them on both platforms, wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you are on YouTube, they also have a Twitter handle, which looks like it's brand new. Their goal is to reach the Polynesian Pacific Island community on how to manage personal finances, options of how to invest money, how to get out of debt, and how to overcome financial issues step by step, because these are challenges that they've already overcome. And they also talk about other stuff too. You can find new episodes every other Sunday. I'd like to welcome DJ Hen and his lovely wife Tala, the Growing Samoan podcast.
Woohoo,
Yeah.
hello. Excited to be here.
Yeah.
Babe, hey, honey,
Yes.
we made it.
Yes, we did.
Whatever.
Yes,
Dude,
We
this
made
is
it.
episode 4. You guys
I can't believe
You
it.
guys are 20 episodes in. So, like, first start off, like, maybe some intros, like, where are you guys from? And then how did you guys start your podcast?
Yeah, go ahead, honey.
Okay, well, first of all, man, thanks for that intro. I'm just happy to be on your podcast. We made it, baby. We made it to the number 1 podcast in the
Yeah.
world right here.
To all the,
Everybody.
as you said, to the 2 listeners out there, man, we thank you too. We thank you 2 people for clicking on this and listening. We are so thankful.
Hey,
Dude.
those 2 listeners are the best. Those are the number 1 fans right there.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why I say we made it is because really I could see this podcast, the FT podcast, just blowing up in a big major way, and I'm just thankful to have the opportunity to be on the podcast with you, my friend Heinz, and with my lovely wife to talk about some stuff. So first of all, just thanks, bro. Thanks, man. Oos,
No problem.
man, you the shit.
Well, this podcast is to promote other podcasts. So it's like you guys have a podcast. We just recently linked up. It's crazy, like just following your podcast. It's like, dude, me and you have a lot in common. Hen. That's why it's just like crazy. So it's like, it's
Yeah.
It's like I feel like I've known you, or we should have met already, especially
Yeah.
being from the Seattle Tacoma area. You know what I mean? So.
It's
Right.
it's just crazy. I feel the same way, bro. I mean, just being like beginner podcast. I feel like because we just started, me and Tyler, not too long ago, and I told myself, man, I just wish there were more people, our Polynesian community, people out there that would start podcasts so we can, even though there was some already.
Yeah. There's not a
Yeah.
lot though.
Yeah, not a lot though. Exactly. And my thing was, man, I wanna get anybody interested in anything, but mainly from our Polynesian Samoan community and Polynesian, Micronesian Islanders in general,
Yeah.
starting podcasts and stuff,
Yeah.
And when I start hearing yours, and then this podcast in particular, the FT podcast, and what it represents on promoting Samoan, Polynesian, Pacific Islander podcasts, I just said, "Oh," I was like, "Damn, you're thinking exactly what I was thinking." But
Yeah.
our podcast is, as we're gonna talk more about, is mainly about finances and just growing up in a Samoan household, and we just talk about money, man. Like Robert Kiyosaki said, the good and the bad,
That's
So
dope. So wait,
yeah, man.
whose idea was it to start a podcast, and how did that start?
Oh, it was her idea all the way.
Oh no, he's such a liar. You know what? He literally my husband had to drag me into, and I'm not one to get in front of a mic or anything. So, but he wanted to do it. He was very excited to do it. It was his brainstorming, and he's just, it was something he was really excited about. So got to support, right? That's part of my wifely duties. So
That's dope. That's dope. I mean, you guys are a team, man, and I love it. So that's why it's
Yeah.
like the first guest on my podcast was the Coca Lisa podcast. Same thing. They're a team. And man, I think it's dope. It's like, it's something that can also bring you two together, and you
Right.
guys could, yeah, it's just it's good to
Well,
have different views too at the same time.
Exactly.
well,
And the good thing was it gave us an opportunity to talk more about finances, our own personal
yeah.
finances, and then it's just easier because then we've been through it together.
Hmm.
One can always finish the other sentences when it
Mm,
comes to what we've dealt with in
mm,
life. So,
Yeah.
you know,
Like
yeah.
when I first talked to her about the podcast, and she wasn't down. I said, oh, you want to go bingo? Oh, if you want to go bingo, you got to do this podcast with me first.
you so lie, honey.
Nah, that's not how it went down, but it was, it wasn't bingo, it was the casino. But anyways, we started this journey, and it's just it's been amazing, man. It's been amazing to damn, bro, just to hear you. And I was listening to your podcast, like we talked about over the phone
Mm,
recently, and man, I listened to all your podcasts from the FT podcast, and listeners just go from episode one, just listen to the FT podcast is off the hook,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
thank
thank
you.
you. Thank
Thank
you.
you for
yeah,
reaching out to him because he was very excited when I came home and he was like, babe, I can hear him talking to somebody and I'm like, who's he talking to? Because he's really excited.
Dude, yeah, when I got the message so you can leave messages, as you guys have
Uh-huh.
talked
on
about on
Anchor,
yeah. So if you
yeah,
guys sign up for Anchor, look for our podcast, look for the Growing Samoan podcast and the
yeah,
FT podcast. You can find our podcast on there. And then you can also leave us voice messages. So
yeah,
DJ Hen reached out to me after I had added him. And then, like, when I was listening, I was getting excited already about having you guys on the show. So it's like, man, just talking with you, it's just like, it's just crazy. It's just crazy.
yeah.
So okay, let's go back a little bit. So let's start with Tala. So like, where are you from, and like, where'd you grow up, and then
Well,
like, how did you get
yeah.
how'd you guys get to Washington? And
Yeah, sure. Let's see. I'm originally from Long Beach, California, from the LBC.
Long
LBC, okay.
Beach,
Shout out to
um,
Snoop. Shout out to Snoop.
Snoop.
right, Snoop was my neighbor.
Yeah. No, no, really, really, really,
He was.
real quick.
Wait, are you for real?
Yeah.
Tell everybody the
What?
story. Tell everybody the story about how you got off of school and was watching the video of them making which video was it
Gin
again?
and juice.
Ooh, yeah, no, what's my
Oh.
name?
What's
First
my
one.
name?
The first one,
Yeah.
Yes. So I grew up on Lewiston Hill, which is kind of border of Long Beach, East Side Long Beach and Signal Hill. And I catch the school bus all the time. So after school, we were coming home with some friends and we looked down in this area they call the ditch. We see all these cameras set up and we're like, hey, they're recording a video. Who is that out there? And we're like, I don't know. I've never heard of that guy before. But it was Snoop. And I remembered it because when they actually came out with the video and I was like, hey, that's the guy that was running.
Yeah. Hey, Heinz, do you remember that video when they
Yeah.
had the faces turn into dogs?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
What's my name?
That,
I loved.
yeah,
Yes,
where
when
he's
they
on
were-
top of the VIP. I used to,
Yeah.
because I went to Poly. So, yeah. So I used
So were
to.
you in high
when,
school? Were you in high school when that came out?
No, I was in
Or
it
no?
was elementary.
Oh, okay. So this is like let me just guess a year. So was this like 92?
Yes, about
Oh.
92. Yeah, early 90s. Yes.
Well, I was just guessing the year just because, yeah, damn. Because I was a big Snoop fan back then. I mean, yeah, like growing up, I loved Snoop. Yeah,
Yeah.
Snoop, Dre,
Yeah.
Yeah, I grew up in RTC, which is Snoop's hood, I guess you could say.
Wow.
RTC, Rolling 20s. So, yeah.
Wow. Like
I
that's
know.
oh man. So damn, I was
I
just
married a gangster.
joking.
No,
Yeah,
you
for
didn't. You know
real.
what? Just stop that. My son straight calls me. He thinks I'm hood sometimes.
Oh man, that's dope.
But yeah, I grew up on the east side of Long Beach, and then I moved up here when I was 20, and I met
Okay.
Henry up here. He was already up here in Washington, but I have a whole bunch of family, so especially on my mom's side, that's kind of how I ended up here for a fresh start. So
Nice.
yeah.
And then what about you? Yeah, so what about you, DJ Hen?
Um, yeah. So I was born in Hawaii,
Okay.
and at the age of I say one, we moved. My family up there moved from Hawaii to Carson, California, where
Oh,
we
okay.
had some family members living there. My uncle, all my family members out there, the Willie fam out there, which are still there too till to today
Oh,
in
nice.
Carson. And we pretty much moved up and down the west coast of America. And the reason why I say that because I know you have a lot of listeners around the world, and they're just like wondering where West Coast we're talking about.
Yeah, West Coast of the
Yeah,
U.S.
there you
Yes.
go.
That's right.
Yeah, so pretty much moving up to the Bay Area after that, living in San Francisco for about 7 years of my childhood. And then in
Nice.
1993, our family moved up to the Seattle area, Washington area, Puget Sound area, right on the outskirts of Seattle, Burien, I think, Burien White
Okay.
Center. Yeah, not too far
Okay.
from Seattle. And ever
Did you go
since,
to
yeah.
did you go to Evergreen?
So yeah, I went to Evergreen. I went to Evergreen High School my all the way up to my junior year until we
Okay.
moved. Yeah, and then we moved to SeaTac, and then I actually graduated from Tyee High School in
Okay.
SeaTac.
Yep. Yep.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep,
Yeah. He was a totem pole. Yep.
yeah, yep. So that's just a brief history of yeah, where we grew up and all along the way, man. You know, the ups and downs of being a Samoan. You got hard living, struggling, finances, church, drama, all that good stuff that
Yeah.
pretty much
Oh
all of
yeah.
us know about in the, poly
If
community. So.
if my husband didn't mention it to you, Heinz, my husband is a pastor's child. So he's a
Oh,
Faisal
you're a
child.
PK too? No
He
way.
is. He's a
Yeah,
Faisal's child. Yeah. So pastor's
yeah.
son.
My dad,
Oh. What
my
church? What church did you guys grow up in? And like, do you guys still go to church? Like,
I'm Catholic. I'm cradle
okay.
Catholic. So I
yeah,
went to church. I grew up in church in Carson, St.
Okay.
Philomena.
yeah,
And then, yep, we are still members of the
yeah,
Catholic Church. My husband converted.
Nice. Okay. Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
yeah. My dad was he was actually history about my mom and my dad. My mom was the one that actually got my dad into church way back in the day. I think that's the story. And my mom pretty much taught my dad about everything, getting better because my dad used to just kick it, I guess, way back in his college days.
Yep.
But he became a Faifeal in the pretty much the Assembly of God churches, uh,
Bucky.
Okay.
Pentecostal, yeah, local pakpaki, which we like to
Look,
call it,
Bucky. Nice. Yeah.
and
Yep.
then all the way until he passed away in 2003. So
Gotcha.
at the same time, I was raised in the church and also bounced around from visiting my Catholic cousins in Lakewood and going to mass and understanding about the Catholic
Dude,
Church. Yeah,
that's crazy. Cause so I have Catholic cousins too
Do
that live
you?
in Lakewood. Yeah.
yeah,
And that's how I met the Nicos. Actually, shout out to the Nicos.
yeah.
But
Oh,
yeah, we would
Nicolaus.
all go to that same church right there
Yeah,
by
the army-based
um
one by Fort Lewis.
yeah. Well,
they go to St. Francis Cabrini now, I think. Yeah,
oh,
I think they go to Cabrini, but they used to go to the one on
that's closer.
base.
Oh, well, I remember I thought I saw them at a different one.
Oh, is
That's
it?
behind that's by Lakes High School.
I wonder.
I think I can't, man, maybe I forgot. But I swore I remember seeing them there, but I forgot what the name of that one was.
They
I
they
gotta like look it up.
they did go
Yeah,
to
But
like so like you know how like sometimes in the Catholic Church they have like a mass once every month and it's kind of a Samoan mass where everything's kind of in Samoan.
oh,
Yeah, and they have that at St. Anne's in Tacoma. I remember that
oh,
one.
oh, now I remember. I think it was called St. John Bosco. That's the one I remember. I
Okay.
thought I saw them there.
yeah.
Okay.
That
Okay, I've
sounds
heard that one.
familiar.
Yes.
Yeah, that sounds
Yeah, I
familiar.
mean, this
Yeah.
is like the '90s, so it was like I
Yeah.
remember like going there a few times because like we when I stayed with my cousins out there in that area, the Moys, like we would. I think I remember seeing them like maybe once or twice and stuff. But
Probably.
like Lakewood's small, you know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
So there's not very many Samoans too at that time. So,
And
but
big shout out to the Nicolau boys. The one thing I do love about, my cousins is they can sing. They love to sing and just the a cappella harmonies. Man, they still got it, man. I mean, we're older in age, but man, every time they blow, they got beautiful voices, man. Shout
they
out to
do.
them,
They
man.
really do.
Yeah,
Shout out to the Nicolaus. Yeah.
yeah, man.
Okay, so let's actually go back further. So you were talking about your mom and dad, like since I haven't really done this, but like this is usually a question sometimes you ask when you meet random Samoans
Yeah,
and stuff.
yeah.
So it's
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
where like do you know what villages are your parents from?
I knew that was coming.
So that's just like Samoan questions.
Right,
You know when you
right.
meet
Like,
someone,
what village you
hey,
from?
yeah, what village are you guys
Right. In
from? Like,
America, it would be what hood you from, but in Samoa, it's like, hey, what village do you come
mm-hmm,
from?
mm-hmm.
Go ahead, honey. Do you know what villages your parents came from? Did he drop out on us?
Oh, I'd still see him in here.
Honey?
And you could always you could disconnect and come back in too. Tell her
Right.
you just stay on.
Right. And yeah,
And
he's in another part of the house. But
yeah, you
yeah.
go ahead, Tala. You start off then.
Well, let's see. My dad is from Salemua, from Libby in Western, and my mom's from Vakia in American.
Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
and I was actually born in Aku, so I was born in Aku, and I moved to America when I was 5. We ended
Oh,
up,
okay.
yeah. So it was a change. It was kind of nice, kind of different, I guess, because I didn't know how to speak English except yes or no.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
For sure,
yeah.
for sure.
I'm kind
But
of
it's like you've lived here so long, you can't even tell like that
no.
English is like your
I
second language.
You know
So
what? I told. Yep. Yay, you're
you're
back.
yes.
Yeah, I lucked out. My first grade teacher actually was a missionary that lived in Samoa with her husband for
No
2 years.
way.
Yes, her name
What
was Miss
the hell?
Parker, and she spoke fluent Samoan, and she was blonde and just totally all
Wow.
American.
So
Yeah.
she really helped out then, I
Yes.
bet.
Yeah, she made my
Yeah,
transition definitely a lot easier when I was younger. So,
that's dope.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Hen, how about you? Like, what do you know? What villages your parents are from?
Um, you guys can hear me now, right?
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Okay, cool. So my mom is from Tafuna, and my dad, he came from Samoa, from Ukuali'i, and then he moved to Lauli'i, Kauai, I believe. And
Oh, wow.
yeah, and from there they met, and then they started the family, and I believe they to San Francisco, if I'm not if I'm
Gotcha.
correct. Yeah, because I'm the youngest of four, so
Gotcha.
they moved to San Francisco, and all three of my older siblings were born in San Francisco. I was the only one who's born outside of it. But yeah, that's just a brief history about my parents and where they came from. So, you
That's
know,
dope.
first, do we are we considered first generation if we're born here or born in America?
Yep.
Yeah,
Oh, okay,
Hmm.
so we're first generation then.
Yep.
Uh,
you
and
are.
my
And
parents,
maybe
yeah,
Heinz.
yeah, yeah,
Yep.
'Cause-
yeah. Oh, because you were born in back home on the
Germany.
rock.
oh, you're in
I was.
Oh,
Germany?
you were born in Germany. Germany.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
That's why I have a
okay.
German name. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So my dad's
Okay.
my dad's from Savai'i.
Okay.
He's from Tafua out in
Uh-huh.
Savai'i, and then my mom is from Upolu, from Vaimoso.
Oh, wait.
So
Okay.
Yeah.
yeah,
Vaimoso.
so Vaimoso's close to town if you've ever been to Apia. So but yeah,
Wow.
yeah. So and then they met, and then my dad was in the military, so they were
Gotcha.
stationed in Germany when I was born. So that's why that's where I came out at. So yeah,
That's
Yeah,
yeah.
awesome.
it's yeah, that is. There's a lot of Samoans that go out to Germany that I hear about a lot. That get stationed out there.
Hmm.
Oh
And I
yeah,
think
for sure.
and I think Lakewood out here is like the second largest community or Samoan community as far as like military bases is concerned. But I don't know. That's just what I
Yeah.
heard.
I mean, West Coast all over though, because I feel like there's definitely a lot of Samoans in like LA, Long Beach, that
Yeah.
area, right?
Oh yeah.
And then
Hmm.
Bay Area too has so many as well. So
Yeah,
it's like you used to live there. I had cousins that lived there too. So
yeah.
it's like now I feel like they're just. I think like as each year passes, man, we're like our people like are just like we just move all over the place. It might be military, and so
Hmm.
like the fact that you bring up military, like I've been to Georgia, and like there's a big Samoan community out there too, and I
Yeah,
was
there
like, this is
is.
so random. I was like, dude,
Shout outs
Yeah.
to
have you
Georgia,
guys?
man.
Yeah,
Yeah, I have a
What part of
nephew
Georgia?
that was based out there for the army, and
yes.
yes, and he his fiance is also in the military and out there as well.
What
See, exactly.
what base is that on Georgia?
I know there's one by Columbus, and then
Uh huh.
there's like Fort Benning. I don't know if that's the same base that's by
Yeah.
Columbus. I think it might be, but
Sounds
which is
familiar.
like, yeah, which is like that's like 2 hours away from Atlanta. Because I was there in 2015. One of my usos
Yeah.
got married out
Mm.
there. Yeah, so then when we went out there was a bunch of us from Washington that went out to that wedding,
Nice.
and we were
Nice.
like, dang, there is a lot of
Yeah.
Samoans. But
Yeah,
what's
So
funny is like outside of the people we hung out with when we would
yeah.
like go out into town,
yeah,
it was all either black or white.
right, right.
It was like,
So that to me, like what we're talking about, it goes to show you, man, Samoa, Germany, Georgia, wherever you're from, and we're all over the place. So
absolutely. New
Yeah.
Zealand,
New
Zealand,
Yeah, you
Australia.
know,
yeah.
a big, huge community of those polys that live out in Australia and New Zealand. Well, a lot of them have migrated to the UK,
But you
which,
know,
Mm.
but you know what? You know what's the funny thing? Like we're saying, yeah, we're all over the place. But if you go to certain places and you tell them you're Samoan, they still say like, "What? What is that? Like
Oh
yeah,
yeah,
a
yeah.
yeah,
Somalian? You a Somalian? Like what the
Well, I
hell?"
brought this up. I brought this up the other day on Twitter. It's like this is what's crazy though. You guys realize we live in a day and age where the biggest movie star
yeah,
Ex-
on the
yeah,
planet is
exactly.
Samoan.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
right,
Exactly.
right.
How
So,
crazy is
so you
that?
have to
Yeah.
say like, you know, my cousin, he's The Rock.
Oh yeah,
shout
everybody
shout out to the
claims the
Rock.
Rock.
Big ups
Yeah,
to the Rock. Love you, Uso. Everything
Oh,
you're
yeah.
doing.
Yeah,
if
it's crazy
if you're
that they don't think that he's Samoan until you explain who his mom is. You know.
yeah.
yeah.
So
I
I'm
mean,
gonna tell
but
you,
Samoans are doing some like big things because I also bring up
Troy
the
Polamalu.
oh yeah, all the athletes
Yeah.
obviously too. So
yeah,
then, but then you got people like Paris Gable who with the whole Super Bowl halftime performance,
Right.
she
yeah,
put that together. She saw one from New Zealand,
Hmm.
and then the other, I forgot the other girl's name, but she choreographed I think it was like the BTS video or something
yeah.
like
I know
that,
you're
or one
talking
of
about.
the
Yep. I know
yeah,
you're
one
talking
of the
about Paris.
K-pop videos.
Is her name Paris? No, I'm thinking about. You just said
She's
her
the
name.
one that did the Super Bowl halftime
Yeah.
performance
You
with
just said
J
her name.
Lo, so she
Yeah.
choreographed that one.
Nice.
But
We're
yeah, it's crazy. Our people are doing crazy things, and then you guys got the Growing Samoan podcast that's out there
That's
doing
right.
some big things.
Everybody's
So
growing, y'all. Everybody's growing. Our community is growing. The Samoan community, man.
Yeah.
And it's funny how you mention that because I look at our people like we are very, very intelligent, smart, strong, powerful, people as a whole.
mhm.
And I feel like sometimes we get looked down upon. We get looked frowned upon in other societies, other communities, because you just see one thing. Everybody's going to judge a book by its cover, right? So I really get excited when I see our people like coming up, just like it's like The Rock. When I first heard he became the highest paid actor in the world, I was just like, damn, we got a
That's
Uso at
crazy.
the top of the
Yeah,
Hollywood world. That's
Hmm.
dude,
insane.
for real.
Yeah,
Like I was pretty emotional when I went to go see. I didn't think I would be,
Uh-huh.
but like when I went to see Moana in the
Yeah.
theaters,
Yeah.
it was like,
yeah.
dude, this is real. Like
We have
They
a
really
Disney
got-
princess that's Polly.
Yeah.
We
That's why I
made
was
it to
like,
Disney. We
yeah,
made it to
that's what I was
Disney.
saying. I was like, dude, that's crazy.
Yes, yes.
Shout outs to Moana
But yeah,
and
that's
Maui.
why it's just it's fun to see. It's fun to see because we're doing we're doing things now, doing big things.
Yeah, a lot of
and so-
recognition coming into it. That's always a big plus, especially to our culture.
Yeah. I
Oh,
always
yeah,
feel
for
like
sure.
I always feel like uh the people that started off in our community are the New Zealanders, all the Samoans, even the Maori people, because a lot of the stuff that we're doing now, it's like they already started it for the Polynesian community. So they like blow it up,
Like what, for example?
Like let's just say movies. Like before
Mm.
you would never even see the Rock or his brothers in Fast Furious, you know what I'm saying? But
Yeah.
there was back in the day, in our day, right? There was Once Were Warriors. You guys remember that movie when it came out?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was the first time I remember being young and looking. I was like, oh damn, that's some polys. And then the first scene when Homeboy was rapping, he was like, "Kasi Lua, go."
Oh yeah, I remember
Yeah,
that. Yep.
yeah. And I think it's an independent film, but just to
Yep.
have our Polynesian people within a movie like that, like a very high quality movie, I'm just like, damn, how come we ain't got that in the States? And this was back in
Yeah.
early '90s, maybe, or
That
Mhm.
movie came out in '94. I
Yeah.
remember 'cause
'94, yeah.
I was in New Zealand when it came out.
Really?
I was
Damn.
I was young. I don't think I saw it in the theater
No, I
because
didn't.
I was still pretty young.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But being there, it was like, the ads were everywhere,
Yeah.
for the movie Once Were Warriors
Oh.
and
Yeah.
all that stuff. So
Yeah, my
Bro.
older siblings, all they did was talk about it. So,
Bro.
Oh, yeah.
Bro, I was in San Francisco at the time, and we're talking about the cities in the West Coast, right? And at that
Yep.
time, they had I forgot what you call those crews that they would just stick up all the Once Were Warrior posters at every single bus stop area, and
Wow.
and throughout the whole city. And I was like, oh damn, what is that? But yeah, man. Well, shout outs to the New Zealanders, man. All the Usos, Polys out there. That I think they paved the way, kind of, for like Hollywood, for
Oh, for sure.
Polynesians,
Yeah.
man. Straight up, man. Well Rider,
For
you remember
sure.
Well Rider? That was good.
Yep.
All those
Yeah.
good movies, man.
well, yeah,
That's
Uncle
true.
Bully was in that movie. No.
Oh damn, there you go. He was in
Dude.
the movie with freaking with Denzel Washington too.
Dude, he's
Training Day.
He's so ambiguous. That's another random dude, but he's so ambiguous
Yeah.
that you can't figure out what he is. That he was able to play a lot of
Different
like,
nationalities.
yes, because I
Yeah.
think he was in True Lies. He was
Uh-huh.
like one of the Arabs in True Lies.
Yes, he was.
Yeah.
I think he was in Blow with Johnny Depp as as a Colombian or something like that.
Yep.
So it's like, dude, Uncle Bully's got some range. dude.
Right.
It's like-
Right. And yet
so-
nobody knows he's Maori.
Yeah, that's crazy. Like,
Cliff Curtis, that's his name.
wow. See,
Yeah,
I didn't even know. That's so funny. If you told me Cliff Curtis, I would
Yeah.
be like, I don't know who you're talking about.
No, bro. The only reason why I know is because I got the laptop in front of me and I just Googled his name. But shout out to you, brah. Cliff Curtis, man.
But
Hey,
that goes back to you. But that goes back to you. Like, that goes back to your point being.
Yeah.
Most people, like especially Polys, most Polys know him as Uncle Bully
I
because
know,
of
right?
Once Were Warriors.
Because of Once
Because of Once Were Warriors.
Because of Once Were
like-
Warriors. Big shout out to Once Were Warriors, man. If you listeners, if you ain't watched Once Were Warriors, and you're probably not poly if you haven't watched it. But if you're a young generator, man, I mean, that's the movie right there. That's the all-time classic right there.
Yeah.
My book.
Yeah, it's deep, man, and it really is
Yeah.
deep. Talks about a lot of tough issues, domestic violence,
Yeah.
and
Domestic
stuff like that.
violence, rape, child molestation, being
Mhm.
broke, living in the
Alcoholism.
ghetto, alcoholism, drugs, gangs. I mean, damn, you name it. The system, adoption. I mean, fostering. I mean, that's the shit that we all pretty much can relate to. You know what I'm saying?
It's
One
such
way
a
or
real-
another.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's such a real movie. It's like it's crazy. It's like almost too real. It's like sometimes hard to watch because it's like
Yeah.
Yeah.
it'll touch parts of you that you might not want to like.
Yeah.
Oh
You
no,
know.
I know people when during that time when the movie came out, like they couldn't watch it because
Yeah.
somehow, some way, they have gotten, molested, and girls, women were crying, and I was just like, holy
Yeah.
shit. I was like,
And
this is real. This is in our own community.
yeah,
Yeah.
these are things that are very taboo, especially in our
Yeah,
culture. So
yeah,
it's kind of nice to be. I think that's part of the reason. Remember, honey, why you came up with the podcast is because
yeah,
you wanted to be able to touch on subjects that isn't talked about in our
yeah,
households or growing up as a Samoan.
yeah. But
Serious.
segue to that, I'm going to give a shout out to another podcast that I believe helps out in that area, which is For the Cultures, because that's what they talk
Mm.
about. They talk about homosexuality,
Yeah, right.
everything in the what is it called? LGBTQ. Um,
Yep. Yep.
Yep, yep.
yeah, yeah, and in the Samoan, not only Samoan, but Polynesian community, and they talk about all those crazy ass topics that nobody want to talk about. So,
Mhm.
that's a segue for people if they want to get a podcast that's focused on the poly community that talks about that. Yeah, man, big shout outs to them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And that's what's dope, man. I'd love to have them on the show one day. Like, that's just my goal is to have everybody like on the show and we all just kind of
yeah,
talk about, stuff like we're talking about that's like important to our community and
yeah, no
things
doubt.
that because you're right. I think like growing up in a Samoan household or a Polynesian household,
Yeah,
there are so many taboo subjects. You know what I
right.
mean?
Yeah,
And
no doubt.
even to this day, me being an adult, it's still weird. Like I still don't talk about certain things with my own parents,
Yeah.
with my own mom nowadays. So it's
Mhm.
Yeah,
like, it's weird how it's like that stigma lasts or that issue of like having certain things be taboo just kind of lasts like
yeah,
almost a whole lifetime sometimes. But
Yeah.
sometimes that's why it's good to have podcasts because it gives us a space so that we can talk
exactly,
about these things,
exactly.
and then if you can't talk about it with your parents because it's taboo, it's like it's nice to have a podcast like yours where you
A
could
space. Yeah,
where you could listen to
yeah,
financial tips and stuff like that and like
yeah,
listen about stories about how you guys had overcome some
yeah,
obstacles and things like that or
Yeah.
like
yeah.
That was pretty
Because
hard in the
nobody,
beginning, honestly.
because nobody, yeah, it's very hard. It was hard in the beginning, but my whole point is in the Samoan community, our house, because we're Samoan, we know how it is. Ain't nobody want to talk about no fucking money. It's
yeah
like it's really really like taboo. Not only because it's Samoan, respect, follow, wallow, but we're raised in the church also. We're pastors' sons, right? We're the pastors'
yeah
kids, and it's
hmm
very even more taboo to talk about coupe in the local. You know what I'm saying?
yep
So it's kind of like I said, since we're on the podcast topics, I said, you know what? This is what I have a passion about. I just want to do a podcast about this, but in a good way to help out the
yeah
Polynesian community and to all who can relate, but mainly our peoples, because there's nothing out there for our peoples, our peeps. Yeah.
Yeah. And I
And
think it's better if it's especially if you're somebody who's gone through the struggles like, debt or being evicted and any of all of
mm,
those subjects that people like to keep close to them and not put it out, put it out there in the open because they're either embarrassed or they're mauled or humiliated, whatever it is that may be. I think that
getting a car
right,
repoed
right. Like
yeah
all of those things, that's not a subject that you just go out and just broadcast to the world, right?
yeah
But
yeah,
if you have been through it and you've gone through it and you know how to get out of it, I mean, I don't think it's as hard anymore to talk about it. It
yeah,
becomes an open subject because there are people out there who just don't want to raise their hand or voice, that, yeah, I'm going through
yeah,
this. What do I do? How do I get there? What do you have for me? Things like that.
that's a great point because who do you go to
Right.
like who do
Yeah.
you
Google
hey I
is my
just got
best friend.
evicted yeah it's like yeah you got to go to Google what to do after you get evicted
Right.
it's
yeah,
like
How
like
do I get out
what
of debt?
yeah,
yeah.
stuff like that. No, so that's why it's amazing that you guys have your
Oh, thanks,
podcast
man.
to, yeah, to talk about stuff like that because it needs to
Appreciate it.
be, It needs to be talked about. So it's like that's why I'm glad you guys are
So
doing that,
look at
man. So
like the Once Were Warriors movie. Like if you look
hmm
at that movie, the when I look at that movie and I watch it, yeah, it's the hurt of the Uncle Bully part. You see the gang violence, but then I also see them living in the hood. They got their
yeah.
own ghetto in New Zealand, and
hmm
why to me it's all finances, financial education. When you don't know anything about your money or how money works and how you're getting trapped in the system, which you don't have to be in. You can get out of it. It's just that I said in one of our podcasts is that everybody, all cultures, other cultures know about how to get financially educated and everything. It just seems like the Polynesian culture didn't get the memo. you know,
Oh
so
yeah.
so it's kind of like our podcast is just like, hey, instead of being like the family and Once Were Warriors and be stuck in there, let's start focusing on our finances first, and hopefully from there it can make our life easier, and we can get up out the hood. We can get our because have you guys watched the Once Were Warriors part 2 or 3? I think it was part 2.
Oh no,
No, I
I
don't
don't
think
think.
so.
Yeah,
So this
what
is a
becomes of
yeah.
something?
So this is a funny story. Part 2 is where what's her name? The mom, she breaks up with
Beth.
Jake the Muss. So Beth, right? And spoiler alert, if you haven't watched it, it's 20 years old. You should have watched it already. But
What becomes
but
of a broken heart or something like that?
yeah. But
Or
there's a
yeah,
scene where they go into Beth's house when after she divorced or whatever, been split up, like
yeah,
fuck you, Jake, I'm on my own now.
yeah.
And then they go to her house and she's living good. Like her house is all clean, there's everything's nice. I mean, it's like a bougie looking house. So to me, it's kind of like, there's a story in that.
Oh
She got
yeah.
her shit together. She got out of debt. She she paid off all this shit. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, that's where we come in, man. Growing Samoan, man. That's just what we want like to talk about, man.
Yeah,
And I
because I
know,
mean,
we can help out.
like, what was it that we were talking about? So, if you're Samoan, you know what "fat lava lava" means,
Oh,
right?
break that down.
So,
Break that down. What's a fat
well,
love love
"fat lava lava"
for
is
those that don't know?
Break it
it's
down.
right. I don't
Break it
like
down, Tatiana.
you guys do understand that English is my second language.
Break it down for Laviana. Yeah, go
No,
ahead, baby. You tell me.
it's you guys are not helping me.
Bust down, bust down. No,
Um,
tell them, tell,
well,
tell,
it's
tell the
just
listeners, man. They need
for
it.
for
Everybody, let's get
us
info.
for us in our culture, a falabalabe pretty much is finances that has to do with funerals, with
hmm
weddings,
hmm
church activities. I've noticed that's become a big one. But it's basically coming out of your pocket, on sometimes unexpectedly for, especially when it comes to funerals. And these are expenses that are unaccounted for. Like we don't know when it happens, and so you're kind of digging yourself into a debt or in a hole to come out with
And
that
there's
money.
so many people that we have talked to
Yes,
now or in the past that just like, God damn it, that another fall love it.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
And
It's
and
becomes a
it's
swear
yeah.
word. We're kind of
Yeah.
But the thing
People
is, to
cringe.
me,
Yeah,
yes.
it's
oh,
like a
they
cringy.
cringe.
It's like a
Yeah,
cringy
I
word. Like if you bring it
cringe.
up, yeah.
yeah.
Like if your
Eh,
parents bring it up, and it's like,
Mm,
oh, that just means you gotta,
yes,
like, you gotta send money somewhere,
right.
yeah.
So
And it's
And
not
to
like $20.
yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
And to not disrespect like any of the Samoans listening that really believe in the Falav this is just coming from a point of view of people who live out here in the States or in New Zealand, like in the
hmm
real economies where you have to go to work. Every single penny and dime is accounted for. So when
hmm
you're getting hit with, hey, I need $500, you're fucked. It's like, well, where am I going to get it from? you know
Yeah.
so that's why we
Yeah,
talk about Fa Love Love is
yeah.
in
Well,
this type of way.
and that's why I was
But
saying, Falava Lave is that's actually a part of our lives, right?
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
and we just consider it as part of our emergency funds. It's
yeah,
just another bill that you just gotta put money aside for because you never
yes,
know.
yes. The Growing Samoan podcast has a way for you to get through Falava's people. Just
Oh,
if
what
you have any
episode is that?
questions,
Do you have an
um,
episode on that?
we don't have an exact episode, but
Oh,
we do have an episode where we talk about
We've mentioned,
emergency funds and
yes,
Falava
that was,
funds.
it
oh,
does
yeah.
fall
We
under
call
that
it yeah,
category.
it falls under that category. So you have savings for every single bill you can account for, and being a
Mhm.
Samoan person, and I'm not talking for Tongans, Hawaiians, Maoris. I'm only
Yeah,
speaking for Samoans. If you are
yeah,
Samoan, I'm sorry to say, but you need to have a Falava fund that will
yeah,
Yeah,
help you out majorly, because then you'll be like, oh, I ain't tripping. I gotta, I this is a bill. Why is
yeah,
it a bill? Well, sorry, homie. It's just like taxes. If you're an American, you got to pay taxes. If you're Samoan, that's your tax.
yeah, yeah. It kind of is. No,
You just have you have to
keeping it
look at it
real.
like that. You have to look at it like that,
yeah,
and but there are rules, because some people, some families just go crazy with, oh, your sister's, your mom's sister's cousin, auntie's brother's friend next door neighbor died, so
right.
you gotta pay
Yeah,
a loving for it.
yeah,
Now that's just wrong, that's stuff you gotta be like, nah, I can't, mom. But if
Y-
it's yeah,
Yeah.
your uncle or whatever,
There's
then
limitations. I mean, if it's an immediate family, especially like a cousin or somebody
yeah,
close to
yep.
you,
yeah.
I think
You
that
want to give, yeah.
yes,
That's
yes,
You want,
there's
automatic. Yeah,
yes,
yeah,
yeah.
that's automatic. That's
No,
automatic.
those ones are tough when it's somebody that's someone random that you don't know.
right,
Like
Yeah,
that
yeah,
right.
maybe you've never met, and it's
yeah,
like what, like
yeah,
My
so
mom goes,
those ones.
"Oh, my cousin's blah blah blah." That, and I'm like, was he ever in our lives? Because I don't
yeah.
know.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
the thing about that is, like what my wife and me talk about is, if you go to the higher Mackays and ask them, are we supposed to get it? And then they straight up, lehai. No, that's,
yeah,
don't worry about that. So there are
Yeah,
rules in our Samoan, community. It's just that I don't think there's a map laid out for, only it's word of mouth, how we, our culture is, everything's, you got to go to the Mackay, you got to talk
yep,
to, the higher ups,
yeah,
and
yep.
then you get the okay from them, then you're good, which I'm pretty sure you know a lot about,
Oh well, it was crazy. When my dad passed, he wasn't just a Faifao, he was also the Faifao Koinga. He was the FT
Mm,
basically. He was
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
FT. That's why they called him the FT, because he was
yeah,
a
yeah, that's right.
Faifao Toina. But so
Got
that's
it.
what
I
made it
heard that
even
in your podcast.
crazier, because it was
Yeah,
like, so he's like half of his
Uh,
friends are Faifaos, so it's like
right.
usually a lot of times at funerals there'll be like one or two Faifaos, but then like when you're like when he's a Toina, it's like, dude, it's like,
Yeah, you get the
dude,
kiakos, you
there's
get
there's
the
yeah,
like
yeah.
I think there was at least 35,000 at
yeah,
the
I
funerals,
believe
which
you.
was like crazy. Like it was just like,
Damn, dog, that's
yeah, so it's
Yeah.
like,
big.
yeah, because it's
So
like,
them envelopes were like being stuffed with all like,
yes,
here, who's
yes.
anybody else here that's a
Damn,
five
bro.
or a
So it was
kiako?
kind of
It
crazy
was,
because like each Faifao got like 500, and then the
Yep.
Faifao
yeah.
Koingas that were there got 1,000. So it
Oh
was
my
like, dude,
gosh.
so like,
I'm so
yeah, it was
sorry.
kind of crazy. It was just like, and like how my Fasat one's not that good, so I'm just
yeah,
sitting there, just like trying to figure out which gonga's going where,
yeah,
and
Right. Look, that's why you
which,
usually have somebody standing behind that person and pointing so you know where to bring it.
yeah, it's like, man, I
that's when
gotta.
they got you the sewer.
Oh,
Yeah.
dude,
Yeah,
yeah. I mean, after the
yeah.
funeral, it was a long, just like process,
A
just
process.
But
yeah,
for
just
your
kind of.
Yeah.
dad's funeral, man, he's
Hmm.
big time. So I
Yeah.
could just hear the trailers backing up to get all the congas out. Beep,
Yeah. Oh,
beep.
yeah. Yep. Yep.
And the
The
pisupos, the kind of
Yep.
U-Hauls,
There was,
box
yeah,
of
the
the
pisupos.
pisupos,
U-Hauls,
yeah.
hella
There was
U-Hauls.
boxes of
Man,
corned
I
beef.
know it,
Yep.
man.
Boxes
Yeah,
of
I know
corned
it.
beef, the congas,
Cases and
The
cases.
the
Yeah,
pelos
yep.
of
yeah,
Vespovi,
Yeah,
yeah.
it was I mean, shout out to to the church though, because they really did a lot of the heavy lifting for my dad's funeral. So they
Oh, that's
really
right on.
like
awesome.
they
That's what's
really
up.
helped out with doing a
What church?
lot of
What
the
church is
faos and
that?
stuff. This is
What church is
Las
that?
Vegas Efakasa. So
Hey, big
yeah,
ups to them, man. Big ups to them, man. Much love.
yeah, much love.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
yep.
Because they, when I hear love from the church, in your voice and that type of way, I'm like, man, more power to that church, because I know there's a lot of churches out there that just kuluku like a mug, crooked. You
I'll just say, I'll just say, I'll just say, yeah. They
And I'm
helped
not
out a
saying
lot.
all of them, but
No,
there are
yeah,
some
no.
them little mom and
Mhm.
pops that just I know of too that I'm just like, whoa. But anyways, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah, no, for sure.
hey
But
man, I'm in
yeah,
it.
I mean, it's so funny. I've never really brought this up, but it's also kind of like it's like, do you guys ever watch like Game of Thrones or
Oh yeah, we are big.
Yeah,
Well,
man.
yeah,
dude? So
yeah.
my dad also. It's also kind of interesting to see how like some people were starting to maneuver their way because like it was crazy. My dad's the Faife Alcoina, so
Uh huh.
he's kind of like the head of like all the area churches, and
Right,
it's just weird just seeing like people are already trying to like ask for his position, and
right.
it's
No,
Oh
like,
it's
damn.
true.
dude, he's sick, he's still sick,
There's
he's not
the
even dead yet, and it's like it's
Yeah,
there's
kind of
when one
like,
goes
politics
down,
and everything,
yes,
man.
yes, it
dude. So I
is.
Politics,
was
church,
like, dude,
church
yeah,
politics, bro. Just church politics.
dude,
That's
that's
all.
why it's like that's why it reminded me of Game of Thrones. It was like, dude, this is
Yeah.
crazy that like
Yeah,
people
moving
are like
the
trying
chess
to,
pieces around that board.
yes, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
just like, dude, he's still alive, he's still sick, like let's so I don't know, it's just kind of funny like
Yeah.
hearing them
So
hearing people talk about that stuff.
It's true
talk,
though.
talking about Game of Thrones, now we're, me and Tyler here in the Northwest, we feel like
Hmm.
we're, people of the North, right? Living
Hmm.
in
We're in
Winterfell,
Winterfell.
you know.
Yes.
So since are you in Vegas? You're in Vegas, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh well,
So
I want to be there
you're one
because
of
it's warmer than here.
you're one of the
It
desert
is.
people, like the Dothrakis right now.
That does.
Oh yeah, 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 for
But
sure.
yeah, man, I love that show, man. I
Me
didn't like the
too.
last episode though. I was just like, damn, man, I thought they could have did better, but
I know,
yeah.
I agree because
Yeah.
I really love that show.
Uh
So
huh.
Me and my wife, me and Tala, I made her watch that show with me from the very first airing of it.
dope.
And ever since then, we were like day ones, like from the beginning, nonstop. And then
See,
it was
I
funny
didn't.
how everybody was catching on later.
Yeah, I caught on late. I caught on like season
Yeah,
3, and then went back
Ah,
and was like, dude, how did I not know
yeah.
about this show for the previous 2 years? Like,
yeah.
so
Are you noticing that my husband makes me watch stuff and
Yeah.
do stuff?
it's
No,
dope. Yeah.
I thought it was cool, right? And I was like, we sat there and just the beginning of and we're like, oh, this is tight. And then when the end came, on that, the when they got caught, the Lannisters, the brother and the sister up in the tower.
Yep.
Spoiler alert, but then me and Tyler looked at each other like, oh, that's that part. I mean, shit.
Oh, you talking about that? Yeah, that very
Yeah.
first episode. Oh,
Yeah, the very end when they got caught, I was
yeah,
like, ugh.
yeah.
That's like, another cringy topic,
Mhm.
but we just clowning. We just like,
I
but
know. I
after
know some
that,
people that watched that first episode and got put off by that ending
Yeah.
scene, and was
Yes.
like,
yeah,
I ain't trying to watch this. So
Right.
it
But
was
yeah,
you
just
know
like,
what? They should have kept watching. I
oh
mean,
yeah.
it honestly throughout
yeah.
the whole season, all the seasons, it was great until the end. But
It's crazy. Like that's probably the show of the decade.
yeah,
Like
Yeah.
for 2010s. Like that show, it started in what 2011, I think, or 2000.
Mhm.
Yeah, 2011 was the first season. So it's crazy because it culminated in 2019. So it's just like,
There was
um, it was like the
there's a,
show of the decade.
hmm
it's the show of the decade to us. But yeah, bullshit you not. Like even at work, like my job, there was a lot of people who just weren't interested and watched
yeah,
it and didn't like it,
yeah.
and
Yeah,
that just hit me when I was just like, fuck, you know what? Everybody's different.
yeah.
Everybody's different.
But I'd say for
So
the majority of people that were able to get on, loved
Uh
it.
huh.
I'd say like
Oh yeah,
80% of the people that I know that started that first episode and started watching.
yeah,
And what's crazy is like how integral it has been in like pop culture. Like it was big on
right.
Facebook. It was
They
big
have
oh, big
on,
like
time.
yeah, there was
what do you
memes
call it?
coming out.
Expos. They got expos that you can
Yeah,
come
Exactly.
and dressed up as Jon Snow.
Exactly. People by the end, people were having Game of Thrones
yeah.
parties
Yes.
and themes, and
But
like people were memorizing
here's
everything.
here's the biggest thing that came out of that. Jason Momoa.
Which is
Right.
crazy because he was
Right.
like, yeah, was only in that first season. That's what's
Just
crazy.
the first
like,
season alone, and the
yeah.
poly came through,
Hey,
represented for the
I'm a
Hawaiian
girl.
Islands.
It's Jason Momoa.
And Jason Momoa. I mean, look at where every single actor is right now. Who is the only actor out of Game of Thrones who's just blowing it up? Is freaking Jason Momoa in his Super Bowl commercial where he's ripping off his skin.
That's true. Well, then that brings up another subject too. Is the
Okay.
fact that
Shout out to Jason Momoa.
It's 2020, and you're right. Outside of Jason Momoa, it's like everything's forgotten almost about that show. Like you don't
Pretty
see,
much. Nope.
you don't see anybody talk about it anymore.
Yeah.
No.
And like it's just. I also think because the ending was so off to a lot of people.
Yeah.
It
I mean, they
left.
had petitions. They had petitions to recreate the ending.
Yeah, it left
My
a lot
mom-
of people with a bad taste because people were loving it every season until that you were waiting for some big culmination, and then it just kind of did what it did at the end and was like,
yeah, it felt like it was like the Matrix all over again.
oh,
They should have just.
There's another one coming out. I hear they're bringing a fourth one.
Ooh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, they're bringing that back. So there's gonna be a part 4.
The Sasquatchy, I forgot their names. Sasquatchy. What's their names again? The directors. They're now sisters now or something. I think they had like 6 changes or something. But can y'all hear me?
For the Matrix?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah.
Something
So,
like
what other type of shows do you guys watch? What other type of shows? Because I'm a big movie. I love movies and TV shows. So I always like to ask my guests that, what you watching nowadays?
My husband's the big binger. I'm a reader. My nose is always stuck in a book.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, if I'm not listening to the FT podcast or the Growing Samoan podcast, I don't know. After I'm still waiting for that big one like Game of Thrones. The Walking Dead. I fell off ever since they killed my man. What's the Asian cat's name again?
Glenn.
When they killed off Glenn, it was like, man, what you guys gotta do that for? But I think there's another episode out. But I've been watching so Heinz.
Yeah.
Since I know you have another podcast, right?
Yep.
And
Keto Island Boys.
Keto Island Boys podcast, and
he's been listening to that.
Yeah, so I've been listening to that,
nice.
and so on Netflix, I just watched the doc. I typed in keto on Netflix search, and
Magic Pill.
Magic Pill popped up, and I was just watching that before we jumped on this podcast, and I was like,
nice.
oh damn. So just some documentaries.
I
don't know what else is.
That's probably like the holy grail. That documentary. I feel like the Magic Pill is probably like the holy grail for keto.
Yeah.
Like as far as documentaries go. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, man. Since we're on that topic, man, I love you guys. The Keto Island Boys podcast, man. I'm on it, man. I'm just like, I'm looking into it. I'm thinking there's some breaking news going on right now on this podcast. Is that I'll probably be trying keto in a little bit, bro.
What?
Yes. He's been talking to me about it. Yes.
That's what's up. So what are you gonna do it too, Tella, or just
I'm
man, she don't need no keto, man.
I have very high metabolism.
Oh, you're one of those lucky ones, man.
I do have German
one of them
in me.
lucky ones, man.
And my German blood is a lot stronger than
man.
So before we hopped on, it was funny because I told Tala, I said, you are already keto. And she's like, what do you mean? I said,
I eat a lot of meat.
All you eat is be supple, and that's it. Because no vegetables, no carbs. She just loves to be supple and like some kalo.
I'm a true Samoan when it comes to fatty meats.
So when you eat be supple, that's a good. So what's your favorite way to prepare it?
Well, I usually eat it with the spaghetti, like the canned spaghetti. The be supple and spaghetti, and then
I wonder who the first one to do that is.
I don't know, but I love it
remember
with the onions.
That's been. I don't know, that's crazy too. Because before we moved to Washington, my mom did that already when we were living in we lived in Pennsylvania before we moved to Washington.
Yeah.
And
That's
even
what's
as a kid, and
up.
there wasn't really that many Samoans around. But
Right.
what's funny is,
That's what's
like, I
up.
still remember that's always been a thing. Like,
Yeah, my mom still
Pisupo,
does it. My mom,
yeah,
we went by earlier or over the weekend to drop off my nephew, and I walk in and my mom's sitting there because she lives with my sister, and she's eating pisupo and spaghetti. So I just take a couple of bites with her fight.
and when we
That's
talk
what's up.
spaghetti, we're talking about canned Chef
Canned,
Boyardee
canned
Yep.
spaghetti.
We're talking about
Yeah,
canned
like
spaghetti here. It's
Yes.
weird. It's like,
just the can. It's just a can with sauce and noodles in it already. Like
that's
just
it. And then
that's
you
it.
combine that with the
Right.
New
You
Zealand
put a little oil
corned
and you put
beef,
some and you put
Yeah,
some
corn.
onions,
onions.
and then
You
you
can
do
fry some
palm,
onion.
oxen palm,
Yeah, with some
and
salt and pepper.
yeah,
If
it's
add
very
a little
basic.
seasoning. And
Yeah,
then if you
okay.
really you get down and dirty with it, instead of pisupo, you chop up some spam. You just use the
Yeah,
spam.
I've done that before too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do eat it a lot with the
But
spaghetti, but I like it as a I don't know if you what you call it, the gravy, the
Kaleve,
pisupo
yeah.
yeah,
caleve.
Oh,
Yeah, I like that
uh,
on my rice. So
that's the problem. So that is one of my favorite ways
yeah.
to. This is like the second time in a row that this podcast has gone keto, but it's so funny. But it's just like, hey, that's my world, though. That's my
No,
world.
no, no, exactly. That's bro. That's your world, man. And not
It's
only
my
this podcast, but that one
yeah.
is the shit. Is the
It's
shit.
true.
Straight up.
It's well, yeah. Those are just my two, and it's so funny because it's like I love when our people like it's like good to hear that that you're gonna try it. And the
I
reason
am,
why I
man.
bring that
Yeah,
up because I remember hearing on your podcast
yeah.
that your dad had passed away from diabetes.
Diabetes,
and
man.
and if you
Diabetes.
listen if you listen to one of our episodes, we had a guy
Yeah.
on from dude, this Tongan guy from Perth, which is
Yeah.
like
Oh, Australia. Okay.
yes, which is like far west coast
Yeah.
of Australia.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Sydney and all the other cities, like major cities, are kind of on. So
Uh-huh.
he's like far out there. But anyways, he hit us up randomly and was like, "Dude, and I don't have to take my diabetes medicine anymore." And I was
That
like,
is
dude, yeah. And
awesome.
he had been taking this diabetes medicine for 20 years. He's
Oh
like,
my
What?
goodness.
he's like our age. He's like 40, like low 40s, like 41, 42 something. And he had been taking it for 20 years. He
Oh
said he started
dear.
doing keto for like 6 weeks, and he feels like he doesn't have to take those meds anymore. In fact, I should check up with them because
Yeah,
we
yeah,
interviewed
Yeah.
him.
that's awesome.
Yeah, we interviewed him about a year ago. So it's like curious to see like how things are going and stuff. So
That's a
That's just
life-changing event right there.
but that's
that
why
that.
I'm happy to hear that you're doing it, Oos, because
Yeah,
like,
man.
like if knowing that your dad had that, like my dad had diabetes too, which is why
Hmm.
I really wanted him to get on, but then like so
No.
many things kind of like
Yeah.
snowballed, and so, but that's why like hearing that you're doing it, like man,
Yeah.
that's like I'm
All.
hoping that it like helps with all that type of
He's
stuff.
very
So
excited, Heinz.
I'm
He's
I'm
very excited
excited.
to start
good,
Just
good.
it.
a quick like brief history to the listeners, and that's why I love your Keto Island Boys, because this is a main area in our Samoan community that's
Hmm.
just needs to be taken care of. Now, a quick story about my history. When I grew up, I witnessed my dad deteriorate from
Mm,
diabetes from a
mm,
young age, went from elementary all the way until I was an adult when he passed away. And just living through that, it was traumatizing for me.
oof,
When my
yeah, I bet.
when I had I mean when I got of age and was able to drive, I took my dad to dialysis. Now, for those that who don't know what
Wow.
dialysis is, that's when they suck all your blood out, clean it, and put it back in. And my
Hmm.
dad, he used to tell me stories after I pick him up, and this was every other day. Drop him off, or whatever hours it is, come back, pick him up. And one story that stuck with me till today is when he told me, he's like, yeah, son, he's like, it's crazy because I talked to the guy next to me, and we both, go to sleep and wait for our dialysis to complete. And when I wake up, yeah, I mean, he doesn't wake up, he's gone. Yeah, and
Yeah, there are
they're all there in the room
situations.
doing dialysis, and he said that has happened to him so many times where he's just talking to a guy or somebody, and he wakes up but they don't. And that's how my dad passed
Oh.
away.
Yeah.
He
He
passed
passed
away.
away
Yeah,
during dialysis. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
But
dialysis
yeah.
is what happens when you have complete kidney failure. Is that
mm-hmm.
correct?
Yes.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
So then basically the dialysis takes over for your kidneys. So that's
yeah.
why you need to go in every other day,
Mm-hmm.
and it
Exactly. Yeah,
basically flushes out what you would usually pee out.
yeah.
Yeah.
Is what the dialysis is doing. You would usually pee out a lot of those toxins and stuff
Hmm.
that's in your body, and the reason why I know that is because in my dad's last days,
Yeah.
his kidneys completely failed. So there was times where when
Yeah,
he had dialysis, we would have to leave the room because the dialysis people would do their stuff, and we would have to like kill like 4 hours of
Yeah.
But yeah, no. So
It's a
man,
long
that's
progress.
dude, it is,
yeah.
and
And
they're
that's
trying
the
to pull
reason.
out all that bad or
Just the
the
toxins.
toxins.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
it'd be like a liter or 2 liters or 3 liters, depending on
How
how much that
bad.
yeah.
they could. Yep,
Mm-hmm.
exactly.
Yeah, that's
And,
crazy.
and you know, one thing about our podcast, the Grown Samoan podcast, is I always have that tip at the end, a health tip. And I told Tyler, I said, no, I need to put this in. I said, you know me, I'm always about health, and I'm leery. I'm always worried about my health,
Mm-hmm.
and I know it's a big issue in the Polynesian community. So when I heard about your podcast, and I was just like, this is exactly what the fuck I was talking about. I was like, I hope somebody's out there doing a health podcast. And then when I came across yours, I was like, damn, there it is. I was like, who would
Yeah,
have known?
man, we
So that's why I gave,
appreciate the shout out.
yeah,
Yeah,
man,
we
had to, man.
appreciate
I'm
the
gonna
shout
continue
out.
that, man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
man, we
Yeah,
appreciate the shout out. Episode 20 of the Growing Samoan podcast. You can hear
yeah,
that they gave us a shout out for the Keto
yep.
Island Boys. So yeah,
Right.
man. No, I'm just really excited
Oh, and you
to
had
have
a
you on.
Law on there, my boy Law,
Oh,
Luke
yep.
Skywalker. So
Lawrence.
just for you listeners out there, when I was listening to the FT podcast, I heard Luke Skywalker, Lawrence on the pod. And I was like, hey, so that's how we connected. So I hit
Yes.
you up. I was like, hey, check it out, man. Let's do this. Let's network. Let's get together, and boom, here we are, man. That's
Yeah,
yeah,
man, I love it. So, but
Yeah.
now that you're starting it, like you could definitely just eat your pisupo, but you can't eat it Calebit style. You can't
yeah,
eat it because you're gonna want to put it with rice.
Sorry,
yeah.
honey.
You can't eat it with the spaghetti,
No, I'm
but
ready. Yeah, I'm
you
ready.
can eat it with whatever vegetables,
Yeah,
oniony, and then like yeah, man, add your vegetables. Just not
yeah,
corn. Corn isn't
yeah.
a good
What
one
was
to eat,
it?
even though
Corned
that one
beef and
tastes good.
cabbage? Isn't
Yes,
that the
that's a good
normal?
one.
Yeah. He likes that
Corned
one.
beef and cabbage, corned beef and
Yeah,
like green beans. I put everything from broccoli to Brussels
yeah.
sprouts with my pisupo. I just like change it up. Like
Yeah.
peppers, I'll put peppers like green
I'm gonna
peppers or
cry
red
right now,
peppers.
bro.
He loves
I'm gonna
vegetables. Like
I'm gonna cry
literally.
now right now, bro, because it's like this was meant to happen, man. For some reason, I
Well,
feel that like the health thing, the financial things, like man, it's just so crazy how we
it's coming
connected.
together. Yeah, man.
Yeah, and hopefully listeners can just flow with us, man. That's my whole goal, man. It's for everybody to just flow with it. Two main
Yeah,
things that we need in our life is our health and our finances
our
just
health
taken
and our
care of.
wealth. Yeah,
Our health and our wealth, exactly. Yeah, man, I
yeah.
love that, man.
Dude, that's dope. So yeah, and a lot of time, what's funny is a lot of times when people do like when people promote keto or talk keto, a lot of times what's spoken about in the forefront is obviously like yeah, you can eat butter, real butter, you can eat
Hmm.
bacon, but what's funny is like I haven't eaten as much like I've never eaten as many vegetables in my life as I have since I started doing keto because I eat
Okay.
it with all that other stuff. Like
Uh-huh.
I'll eat vegetables with the pea soup bowl because
Because
you
the flavor actually takes away the blandness of
but
everything else.
but it also
Yeah.
replaces rice and pasta and bread. It's the vegetables. You know
Ah,
what I mean?
That's right.
the
Because you gotta
carbs.
cut carbs. Yeah, yeah,
Because this is how I like, dude. This is how I like the very simplest way I love my pisupo. Pisupo, onions. That's it, and I'll put pepper and
yeah,
season it or whatever. And then I'll eat that with rice. That's it, or that's how I
yeah.
used to eat it. But now that I can't eat rice, I just gotta load it up with like so many vegetables. But
Do we
yeah,
explain to the listeners who aren't Samoan what pisupo is?
Corned beef.
oh
So it's
yeah,
corned
that's right.
beef.
Yeah,
So we're talking.
pisupo.
I
Yeah.
don't know. I'm not sure if we did,
Oh, you
but
know
it
what's
is
so
corned
crazy?
beef.
Yeah, and then the
We're
fact that
talking
you
about
guys,
canned corned beef.
yeah,
Go ahead. Go ahead,
it's
Heinz.
one of our, yeah, I think it's one of like a lot of Samoans' favorite foods is pisupol, is like because it's
Yeah.
we just love that corned beef, and a lot of times you got to get the one from New Zealand or Australia. Sometimes you could find cheaper ones at the store that might be from like Brazil or something.
The
But
oxen
You
palm.
you know
yeah,
when
the
there's a
oxen
lot
palm
of
is bomb. I like that one.
you know when there's a lot of polys in the community is when
Hmm.
they gotta lock up the pisupo at the stores
Oh yeah,
You're so bad.
because pisupo is like gold. Nah, that happens. They do that in
I know they do
Hawaii
the
and
same thing with
places.
spam.
Yeah,
so you know what's crazy? Like you guys live in the Pacific Northwest and Federal
yeah,
Way, right?
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah,
what's
yeah.
dope about that is like for me living out here, there's nowhere that I know of right now where you could go buy fresh, hot Samoan food.
Oh
Yet
Oh
damn.
in your
yes, I
backyard,
remember
dude,
that.
Yeah,
in your backyard, there's at least two places I know that you could
yeah.
get hot Samoan food.
Yeah,
Because there's
Oh
a
Lily
yeah.
place,
songs.
yep, Lily
Also.
Song. There's a place that's in Federal Way.
Yeah.
Gosh, it's called like International Market or something like
Oh yeah,
that.
Oh
yeah.
yeah,
That's the
yeah,
one on
yeah.
Pack Highway, right
Yes,
across the street
Yes,
from
yes.
Safeway. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
dude. Yes, yep, dude. Their mamoy off the hook.
Oh,
Oh yeah,
love
Their
yeah,
lamb.
mamoy is. I love
Love
their
lamb.
mamoy,
yeah,
dude. So their
yeah,
lamb
Thank you.
chops is perfect. It's
yeah.
Yes.
like
Shout out to them, man.
Tender. Oh,
yes. So you know exactly what I'm talking
I
about, right?
am. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
I
And
told
I'm
you
so
yeah. I love my
that,
Samoan food.
so that's good, man. Yeah, yeah. So that's mamoy is my favorite. Is like
Mm-hmm.
that's my favorite thing to eat. So it's like so like the fact that like I missed that about Washington about how like
yeah,
I'm
I would
so
go down,
sorry. I'm
I
like,
would
oh, you're
drive
in
down to I
Vegas.
would live in Seattle and I would drive down because songs Moy isn't it's not as seasoned as good as the one that they have
No.
down in Federal Way.
Mm-hmm.
So I would
yeah.
drive all the way to Federal Way because I would crave Moy sometimes
Mm-hmm.
and then go buy it from them
Yeah.
and
Big
yeah
shout out
that's
to the
Yeah,
that's the
I hear you.
Tudufales. Yeah, that's the they've been there for a while. I remember going there when they first opened up and they know how to get down. They know how to throw
see
down.
I
Yeah.
just found out about it maybe like 2000 shoot maybe like 2018
Oh, okay.
17, 18.
Yeah.
Like I just found out about it right before I moved to Vegas. So I
Yeah.
was like, dude.
Hot
And
spot,
then,
good food.
dude, yeah, Bob,
Yeah.
if you want Samoan food right there. Yep.
Yeah.
If I could,
International
if we
market.
could FedEx it, we'd FedEx you some Samoan hot food. Believe me.
Oh man, yeah.
I mean,
Dude.
we do know that. I mean, we've been to Vegas a few times, so I totally get it. I'm like, yeah, there definitely isn't any really, unless you have a family member that's throwing like a plate sale
Yeah, I
or
mean
something.
we can make it. Yeah, I mean we can make
Yeah.
it. We have places where you can go buy that stuff and you can make it
Yeah.
at home. But sometimes if you're lazy and you just want to go,
I
Yeah.
hear
you
you.
know what I mean? Yeah, you're
Like,
just lazy
Right.
and go get some warm
Mhm.
Samoan food that's already cooked. It's like
Right.
cooked for you. It's like, man.
Yeah, we're
So
fortunate out here. We got a few spots out here, man. Yeah. Especially in Federal Way,
yeah.
mainly. Yeah.
That's just crazy to show you the population of the Polynesian community in the Northwest too.
It's growing,
you know,
man.
like yeah,
Yeah,
it
it's
really
pretty
is.
huge. Because there's a huge community in Pierce County, which is like Tacoma and
Yep, yep.
Lakewood. Yeah, and then of course
Yeah.
you've got all of Seattle and the King County.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are the two places. Like I grew up in Pierce County. I grew up in Spanaway. I grew up down there, and then I went to UW, and then I lived in Seattle for like the last pretty much 20 years. So
That's crazy.
Nice.
And now
Yeah.
you're in desert.
Nice.
Now you're in desert land.
yeah,
huh?
now I'm out in the desert now. So it's just crazy. It's
Like
yeah,
we were talking
that's
about,
why.
man.
I
Small
bet your
world,
cost of
man.
living is definitely a lot better than it is here right
Oh,
now.
that was one of the reasons why I moved down here for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah, it
my
was hard.
husband was telling me that, and
It was
that
hard. It was hard for me to save in Seattle, to live in Seattle, and like save properly and stuff. So
I hear you. And
So,
is it
yeah.
just you, or you and your family that live
so
out
it's
there?
just, it's me and my mom right now. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
How does your mom like it? She loves that hot
she
weather.
loves this area. Yeah, she loves it. She loves this area. They've lived here for like 16 years now.
Oh
Yeah.
wow.
So they've
Nice.
lived here 16 years. So like I've always like kind of went back and forth just to
Mhm.
visit. But then it was weird. Just something came upon me where I felt like I needed to move down, and then so it was kind of like a blessing, though. To be honest, like I didn't know that my dad was going to get sick, and then
Yeah.
he kind of did. So I happened to be here already. So very
That's
thankful that I
perfect.
got to. Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
it
I'm very
was-
thankful. I got to be here with them this last year, so it was kind of like a blessing in disguise. A lot of people have been saying, so
Yeah,
yeah.
man. No
And if
doubt.
you don't
No
mind me
doubt, man.
asking, did your dad pass away within the past year, or?
Yeah, so he passed away actually back in September 22nd of this 2019. So
Wow,
Wow.
I
yeah.
feel you. My dad
Yeah.
just passed in October too.
Oh
We
wow.
were in
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we were in LA. We were in Long Beach.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, that's
This past
Condolences,
year
crazy.
man.
too. Yeah. So you have my
And
sympathies. Yeah,
Yeah.
my dad was 76 when he passed. So
Oh
and
yeah,
wow.
he lived a good life.
Yeah.
what the thing about our podcast too is we actually did an episode like when my father-in-law passed away, when Tyler's dad passed away
Mm.
recently. We had an episode about how financial education can help you out when a loved one
Yeah,
or family member passes away, and
Mm.
we
that
dug
falls under
into it,
our
man.
fall of love
Yeah,
category.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. So that that's probably like the episode that yeah you were probably asking about. That's probably the main one. So
Well,
I
what
hope.
hit me too?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hit me about your show too is your first episode.
Oh
You,
geez.
if you go back and listen to the first episode
yeah,
of the Growing Samoan podcast, you guys did
yeah,
that episode on Father's Day,
Yeah, we
and then
did.
like
yeah,
it kind of
yeah,
hit me because you were talking about your dad,
yeah.
and then your guests were brothers, and then they were talking about their dad too.
Your
Mhm.
dad, yeah,
You
yeah,
guys were both talking about you guys' dads who had passed away.
Yeah.
yeah,
Like their dad had passed away in
Yeah.
2016.
Uh-huh.
Your dad passed away 2003.
yeah.
And I was just thinking, like, damn, that was the last Father's Day that I had with my dad, and I remember
Oh
that day.
wow.
It was like, you know what I mean? And so it was
Oh
Yeah.
just like,
No, I
it like
totally
hit
get
wow.
me.
it. I totally
Oh,
get
like
it.
just listening to that episode
Wow.
hit me like in a different way because I was like, damn,
Yeah, and I was down
like,
there in April, that right before that podcast, and I
oh
spent
wow.
time with my dad when I went
Yeah.
down. So it was bittersweet,
Shout outs to all the dads, man. You
right?
here on
Yeah,
living
So
with us still, and
bittersweet.
those that are passed on, man.
Yeah, and the brothers,
exactly.
those are my sisters. Those are my nephews. Those are my
Yeah,
sister's sons.
yeah,
Oh
So,
wow.
yeah, those are my nephews.
yeah,
And so yeah, their dad played a big role for me growing up. Lavale bad growing
Yeah.
up, and so
yeah.
he used to get us out of trouble a lot.
That's
I love
awesome.
how everything's coming full circle, and to me, the podcast. Um, what people don't understand is that if you don't voice out what you're good at and what you like to talk about or just interested in, you would never know. The world would never know. If you never voiced out on with the Keto Island Boys, if I never voiced out with Growing Samoan, it's like we would be able to be helping people out financially in their health and anything. It's just amazing. Like when I think about it, like just
Yeah,
taking action.
yeah.
Taking action.
I give you total props for getting for having this FT podcast, just
Yeah,
to get
bro.
all the poly
Yeah.
communities together. Especially
Yeah,
there's
man.
so many people out there who have an art to speak
Yeah.
about things that are not the subjects that we are speaking about now. But there's so many things out there, and I'm pretty sure somebody somewhere will jump on
Yeah,
and bring that topic to life. So
yeah.
That
And
brings up
for
a good
yeah,
point. That brings up a good point. If you're listening to this podcast and you don't have a podcast, you should have a podcast because I need
yes,
more people to be on this podcast
yes,
because
yes, no
you
doubt.
know
yes.
because I was literally right before the show I was trying to convince one of my boys on Twitter because
Uh-huh.
he had this amazing anime post about
Ooh.
anime characters
Mm-hmm.
that could be that he could think that are Samoan. I was
Oh,
like,
Yeah.
dude, so he had
nice.
like
It's
7
huge
different
right now.
shows. Yeah, well, I hit him up and I was like, dude, you should start an anime podcast,
Yeah,
Oos, and so I was plus he's an artist too, so I was like, dude, every episode you could have a piece of art too as your background cover and
yeah,
stuff. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? So I was just like, but I'm always thinking of stuff like that because you're right. I just feel like because I've always said like there's a million podcasts out there already, right?
Yeah.
so many.
But there's only but you could think if you're like I think podcasts do well when you have a niche because like Keto Island Boys, that's a keto podcast for Pacific Islanders. That's very niche. you
Mhm.
guys
Yeah.
you guys have a Pacific Island Polynesian podcast for finance.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like,
Yeah.
and everybody has a niche about what they're passionate about. Like, what's funny is that I'm surprised that I don't see any Polynesian podcast about just boys drinking together. Like in the
They have a lot of
garage.
YouTubes about that.
Yeah.
Oh, so that might be it. Man, there might be YouTubes about it, but no
Right.
podcasts. Yeah,
No
I
Yeah.
don't see any. And then I don't see one, and I'm surprised I don't see one like just geared on sports too, or football, especially because of
Oh
all
yeah.
the
We're
Samoan
big.
like
We're
Polynesian
big.
football players.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, we're pretty huge, especially considering that a majority of the Polynesians are football players. That's kind
Yeah.
of what we're
Oh
built
yeah,
for, right?
yeah. You know, yep. Besides the Rock, yeah, like we're known for having amazing football
We
players. Right now, Tua is at the Tua Tagovailoa is over at
Yeah.
the
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, with
NFL
our
Combine.
our
Yeah.
nephew is out there too.
Oh,
Keith
Yeah.
Ismail
oh, what?
for San Diego State, the Aztec.
Nice.
Yeah, he's a guard, babe, right? Center and guard.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's good.
So,
Yeah.
They're both
O-line,
under
yeah.
the same age.
I believe the agent. Yeah.
Oh.
They
I
just
think
saw
they
the
have the same
post.
agent.
Yeah, Steinberg.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And
that's
Yeah.
dope.
yeah, it's dope, man. My cousin actually, my nephew's plays for San Diego State. He's going in the draft. My cousin, his dad has been there the whole time with them, posting videos.
Yeah.
And yeah, he shared videos with him and Tua's mom and dad, Jesse Sapolu.
That's
Yeah.
dope.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, that's what's up, man. Paulie Love.
Yeah, we're
man.
really excited about it. We're hoping that he comes to the Seahawks just because his dad's a diehard Niner.
Oh, that would be funny.
Yeah, we need a center.
Yeah, well, you know, we like to we like to give our family grief. You know, football. You know how that
Yeah,
is.
for sure.
Yeah.
So, man, that's another thing I brought up that I noticed too. You guys sport your Seahawks fans. So, are you guys Seahawks fans?
Oh yeah, no
Yeah,
doubt.
well,
We're 12.
That's dope.
I learned football here with my
Oh,
husband.
okay.
Honestly,
Dope.
I'm from Long Beach, so I'm not a Raiders fan. I didn't grow up. That's kind of before me.
Yeah.
My
Yeah, but I didn't learn football until here. We have 5 boys, by the way. I have no girls.
My,
I have 5 boys, so I had to learn what football was all about.
my
Wow.
San
Oh,
Francisco.
5 boys. What are the
Yeah.
ages, real quick, by the way, of your 5
Oh,
boys?
go ahead, tell him, babe.
21, 18, 15, 14, and 7.
Yeah.
Yeah. So mommy had to learn what football was all about because my oldest son was a big football player.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
We talk about it too on our podcast about the because when it was football season, you know, we had to throw that in there and everything. So
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
well, yep.
Yeah, but you know, majority of our family are all Niners, so we always laugh. It's a big, all fun.
Yeah, man.
and
Niner faithful
good
is
times.
strong. Yeah, for sure. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So, and it's like, you know, because growing up, especially in the 80s, like the only Samoan that we knew that was in the NFL was Jesse Sapolu that I
Jesse
can remember
Sapolu,
in
yeah.
the 80s. Yeah. So,
Yep.
so I think like,
And then Junior Seau came out later.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Exactly.
I lived-
90s was definitely Seau for sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right.
So I was living in
Right.
San Francisco during the 88 and 89 back-to-back Super Bowls.
Oh,
Yeah, and I remember everything like it was yesterday, and that's what, you know, drew my love for football is my dad, my uncles, my family representing the Niners. And so as a kid,
Mhm.
I grew up a Niner fan. But when I moved up here, the Seahawks started winning in about 2000 when Holmgren came, and
Mhm.
I put the Niners on the back burner and became a 12 in like 2002. And ever since then, I've been a 12 man.
dude, we
Diehard
have some
Seahawks
we're just so similar stories. So you know what's crazy?
Yeah.
So so just some similarities that I brought up in the
Yeah.
beginning of the podcast that I wanted to bring up. So now with that story too is like so my dad he had his basic training in Texas. So when he
Okay.
first
Okay.
came to the States, he was at his basic training, so he became a Cowboys fan because they
Oh
were,
yeah, no
it was like
Texas.
the 70s. They
Oh,
were
yeah.
good. The Cowboys are good.
Oh,
in
yeah,
the,
they
in
were
the late
doing it big.
70s.
America's team.
So like he
Mhm.
was a Cowboys fan. So I grew up kind of like a Cowboys fan, kind of watching
Mhm.
like with him too, you know.
Yep.
But then
Uh-huh.
my dad left to do he left to go to Fife School, and I went to college. I went to UW, And by that
Mhm.
time, it's like Cowboys weren't really good anymore. And you're right, it was kind of like that. And I was like, dude, I live in Seattle, like actual
Yeah, man.
Seattle now. Like,
Yeah.
Mhm.
and it's like the Seahawks are here, and so it's
Yeah.
like all their games are on TV. So that's kind
Yeah,
of how
man.
same.
Yeah. This is my
Yeah.
home.
Yeah, so I switched over too. I
Yeah,
switched
man.
over from being a Cowboys fan to like being a Seahawks fan, and
There
then
you
that's
go,
the
man.
same
Gotcha.
thing. Because I was like, dude, I live in Seattle. Like this team, like I go by the
Yeah.
stadium like every other
Yeah.
day. You know what I mean?
All,
So it's
yep.
like I'm gonna like this team regardless. But
Right.
so yeah,
Back then it was what, Quest?
yeah,
Questfield.
Questfield, yeah.
I'm glad
So
you made that move because, like my story, I tell the people about the sports team is they always say, "Why do you change over? You're a traitor."
yep,
But when I was young, and the emotional attachment of winning a Super Bowl and being surrounded by your family, that
yeah,
was like the best memories of my dad, my family, my brothers when we
mm,
were in San Francisco
Yeah.
winning Super Bowls. So when I
yeah,
moved up to the Northwest, nobody knew about winning a Super Bowl. They didn't know about
yeah.
that feeling.
It's
So when the
true. We
team,
did it.
yeah, so when the team started winning, I was ready. I was like, nah, it's time.
Yeah.
I want,
We raised our
yeah. I was
boys
like,
that way
I said,
too. So
I want everybody here in the Pacific Northwest to get a Super Bowl win because they need to know what that feeling is. And when we won, oh shit. I mean, it unleashed the beast, man. You can see it now.
yeah,
Everywhere you go is
him and
12s, man.
he was lucky. Him and
Yeah,
him and my older two boys,
yeah.
they got to go to the parade.
But the
That
funny
was a
thing,
great day. That was
yeah,
one of the. I used to work right there by the stadium, so my
Really?
boss
nice.
basically like half the office wasn't even at work. But yeah, I mean, I
I
remember.
wanted to
Oh,
go.
I remember going into work at like 6 because I tried to get as much work done like before the
Uh-huh.
parade started at like 9 a.m., 10 a.m.
Yeah,
And then,
Yeah.
but yeah, it was one of the best days of my life. It was cold. It was super
cold as
Yes,
cold.
shit.
it's super
Yeah, it
It
was
was like
cold.
the
cold as
coldest
shit.
day ever, but it was
Yeah,
one of the funnest days of my life because it
yeah,
was just like the whole city was celebrating.
yeah, man.
And
Yes. I mean, you had people from Canada
Yeah,
coming down. You had people from Oregon coming
oh
up. It
yeah.
was, I mean, I wanted to come and I told my husband, I was like, there is no way I'm getting on a Sounder train. It is
Yeah, if you
ridiculous.
weren't on
yeah,
a train, if you weren't on a train before 7 o'clock, it was like
Uh-huh.
it was almost impossible. It was like, if you're trying to get on a train to come up because it was like
Right.
so crowded.
yeah.
Super
Yeah.
packed.
So
Super packed.
The
But
thing,
if you don't mind me asking, where did you, or what were you doing, or what did you do for work
Oh, so
down?
I was part of a digital marketing company and we did like
Oh, gotcha.
websites and like digital
nice.
advertising stuff. Yeah. So
Nice.
it was and it was pretty good culture there, like as far as being laid back and stuff. So they really allowed us to do like some fun stuff while I was there. So but yeah, so it was
Nice.
dope. It was like, yeah, I would it was that was just like that
Oh,
was a fun day.
Is
you're
that what you
straight
do now?
techied
No,
out,
no,
right,
no,
bro?
no. What's that?
I said you're a straight techied out, right?
No, I wouldn't say straight techie out, but it's like I'm just like so. When I came down here, I was just driving Uber and Lyft. I wasn't really looking for work like that
Oh,
because I
okay.
was just
Uh-huh.
I feel like I was a little burnt out, and then Dad got sick,
Ah,
so then
Yeah.
I
okay,
stopped
gotcha.
kind of working and stuff, and so like just starting to do these podcasts again is like kind of where
Yeah,
my passion is lying at the moment. So that's
Yeah.
kind of
tell you,
where
man.
yeah, that's kind of
Gotta
where I'm
That's
at right
follow your
now.
awesome.
passion, man.
Yeah, man,
Yeah.
that's exactly what I'm doing.
Yeah.
That's exactly why I
Yeah.
wanted to do this. So,
Yeah,
I
I
hope
was
the
just
listeners can
curious as to
hear it.
what.
Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was just curious as to what you were, what your
oh
career, what it
yeah, so
is
that's
that
my
you do.
background right now. I did that for like I did that since like 2011, 12. Yeah, was like
Oh,
in
okay.
that realm. Yeah.
Okay.
Hmm.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. I recently just went back to work
Yeah,
in
that's right. Yeah,
December, so it's no biggie.
yeah,
I stayed home for a couple of years, took some time off, took that break.
Yeah,
Everybody
yeah.
needs a break.
absolutely. Yep, that's exactly
Um,
kind of what I'm doing right now. So
yeah,
I'm
it
enjoying the
was
break.
awesome.
Yeah.
I thank my husband. I'm like, thank you for my 2 years off, but okay, back to the grind.
Yeah.
Back to the grind.
But we
Nice.
have a whole different mentality of what back to the grind means, and
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
what we like to talk about on our podcast is just our journey and our end goal, our end game. because there is an end game now. Not like before.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's
My
well, also to bring back. I was like, man, I keep on trying to bring it up. I love how we just like go
oh
off the
man,
topic.
we could go on
so
for
So,
good.
days, man.
so
Shoot,
okay,
I ain't
so there's
tripping.
the Dallas Cowboys. So the switching over to the
Yeah.
Seahawks thing,
Yeah.
and then the fact that we kind of both moved to the to the Pacific Northwest almost around the same time. I was like 89. You
Yeah.
were what 93.
93.
So
Yeah.
yep. So we're still kind of like that area. You're
Hmm.
like a year older than me. You're 79. I was born in 80. And like, so
Okay.
you were born in what,
Hmm.
July, August?
Yeah. July 5th.
July. So you're July 5th. I'm June 26th, 1980. So
Okay.
like
Oh,
we're like
honey,
a
you're
year
old.
apart, right?
So,
My
so I'm the
middle,
oldest. I'm the oldest out
You're
the
the
three of us
oldest on
right
our
now.
podcast right now.
yeah. Well, how old are you, Tell 'em?
I'm 82.
Okay, okay. Oh, so you're the baby for sure.
Yeah.
And then my middle name is Henry.
Oh,
Oh,
So
that's
that's
awesome.
so yeah, my middle
That's
name
crazy.
is Henry. So both of my grandmas are half Chinese. So you were saying that
wow.
Yes.
your dad
Yeah.
your
Is a lineman. Yeah, he's
Yeah,
he's got
lineman,
Chinese
yeah.
blood in him.
so yeah, so I'm my mom's so both of my grandmas were half Chinese. So then
Bro,
so that
you
makes me quarter. So I'm actually quarter Chinese. That's why I
do you,
look
I
really
was
Sangha. Yeah.
I told you,
That's
honey.
why I
Yeah.
look
See,
really
I
Sangha.
was telling him because he was showing me your picture, and I was like, "Oh, babe, he looks like he has thing on him."
Oh yeah, quarter. I'm quarter. I'm like full on 25% Chinese. Yeah.
bro,
See, I knew it.
you know what's my weakness, bro?
What's that?
The Chinese
Chinese
buffet.
Oh
food.
yeah. Hey, you can still eat keto there. You can still eat keto there. You
Hey,
know,
that's what's up.
it's
That's what's up.
it's yeah. It's the Chinese buffet that I go to. They put like this like cheese sauce on the mussels,
Oh,
and
Oh
dude.
no.
I just kill. They have to refill that thing over and over because like
That's
I'm not
what's
eating
up.
any rice and I'm not getting full off of rice or any of the noodles.
Uh-huh.
So I'm literally eating like 12 of those on a plate on a time, just like dude,
Oh
they're so good
man.
though. So that's my favorite. That's one of my favorite things to go eat at.
You guys are
The
so similar. That is
That's what I'm saying. I
hilarious.
feel like that's why it's so crazy to have DJ Head. Like we have so many similarities. That's why I was
I
like,
wish we had
dude,
met you when
oh
you
Yeah,
were
man.
you guys will
here.
for sure,
It's
for sure.
crazy.
I'm already planning on coming down to Seattle to be in the original spot of where the Growing Samoan podcast is, so that we
Yes,
can
sir.
Oh,
have a
Yeah.
proper,
yay!
Yep.
yeah, so that we can
Yeah.
have a
We talked about
proper,
that.
yeah.
Yep.
I'm already planning it. Like it's coming up in the next couple months, so it might be. Yeah, we'll talk about it after the show. But like I already see
Yes,
it
sir.
in the works because it's
Yes, sir.
like, dude, there's so many similarities. It's just so weird. That's why it's
Listeners,
like, shit.
listeners, all you
Well,
listeners, get ready because it's
goodness.
gonna happen. And, we're gonna be in the studio on the Grown Samoan podcast with my
Yeah,
man Hines,
for sure,
and
for
it's
sure.
he's gonna bring all the keto treats. And
Oh yeah, hell yeah,
is there keto liquor too? Because we like to
yes,
drink a little
yeah.
something something.
So
I got some in my cup right now.
So whiskey and tequila. So whiskey and tequila are all good. Just make sure if you mix it, don't mix it with anything with sugar. Diet drinks are okay. Sparkling water is usually the best, but
Mhm.
or just with the rocks, like
That's what I'm
tequila
talking
or
about.
whiskey on the rocks is all good too. Now the biggest rage out lately has been the seltzer beers. So like if you go find Truly, White Claw, those are actually
Yep,
Oh,
White
really
Claw.
bomb. Yep, Truly, White Claw. There's Bon and Viv. There's Bud Seltzer's got their own now. So
I
there's
found.
like a million different brands
Hey,
out now.
hey,
As long as they
honey,
have,
honey,
Oh dear.
I found my diet calling keto. It is,
dude,
Oh,
baby.
it might be,
there it
yeah.
is,
It
Heinz.
So
is.
what's
See?
I've been
crazy
looking
is,
my whole
hey,
life for this.
but I'll tell you this. Be careful.
Yeah.
Because when you start doing keto and you start drinking, dude, you get faded faster. And then not only that, if you're losing weight, that's another reason why you'll get faded faster. So,
Right. So my husband has that
That's what's up.
Chinese, same like you,
dude,
right?
that's me. Yeah.
So when he gets faded, he gets
Red?
very more Chinese.
Oh yeah, dude, that's me all day. Dude,
I
that's
get
what
the
I'm saying,
Sangha
man.
ice. I get the squinty ice.
Dude, that's me too, man. Dude, I'm excited. I'm excited for
I'm
it. So,
Yeah,
totally
man.
excited.
Same here,
so
man.
okay.
Yeah.
Can't wait.
So before we end this podcast,
Uh-huh.
I just want to say, is there any tips out there that you guys have for people that want to like save or get out of debt or anything like that?
Oh,
So, when we first started, this journey, the number one tip that helped me out was just taking your time, and by doing that, uh, here's a big tip: is just take 10 minutes a day, read something financially, about finances,
Okay.
or listen to a podcast. That's how I started. I started slow. I like to say you like to take baby steps. It's good to say baby steps, right?
Yeah.
So, start off with 10 minutes a day. Listen to the Growing Samoan podcast. 10 minutes a day. If you like it, listen to more, than 10 minutes. But find something to read. I have a couple of things, like here you can read. So
Read.
this
Yeah. Like
is, I
what?
have
You have
three
any?
good books to start with. And number one is called The
Nice.
Richest Man in Babylon. And that's a real great book. It's an easy read. People, if you love the Bible, you can relate to like the literature, the language in it. It's kind of similar to that time, in
Mm-hmm.
Babylon. Um, Number two, this is what got me started, was a book called Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. And number three, Millionaire Next Door. Now, number two, Rich Dad Poor Dad, is a great book because to me, it's just a gateway to financial education, and it'll just open your mind, right? And the last one, Millionaire Next
Dope.
Door, is kind of like, uh, it'll change your mindset of how millionaires make money. Like, your next door neighbor could just be a millionaire. You don't even know it. It's just because they know how to save money and not spend a lot, right? So yeah, that's some tips right there.
Mm.
Listen to the podcast, read some books, and take your
yeah.
time, man.
Yeah,
Yes.
Everything takes time.
he definitely
Go ahead.
did the
Yeah. Like I said.
research. He did the reading and the podcast. I'm the I took over at the part where I'm the negotiator. So I'm the one that's calling the debt collectors and every
Nice.
there's so many
Yeah.
tips or so many steps to it, but um I learned that you just can't avoid the bill collectors when they call. Sometimes, eventually you'll get to the point where you're looking forward to them calling because you want to see what they can offer you just to get rid of one debt, you know? Yeah. So, I mean, but yeah,
Nice.
I
Yep.
took over after he did most of the research, talked to me about it. And by the time I got on, I pretty much took over the paperwork. And
Yeah,
yeah.
man. Yeah.
Dope. Dope. You
Yeah.
guys are a team. That's what it's
Strengths and
about.
weaknesses is how we
So
looked at it. Like
Yeah.
you have,
yeah.
if you're a couple,
That's
definitely
dope.
find out what one has in strengths and what the other has, because if you work together, then you can definitely beat it, or get on top of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And check out our podcast. We have so much information on there. And thank you, bro Hines, for this
I
bomb
know.
ass podcast you
I had
made.
such an awesome
You know,
Absolutely,
time.
man.
the F
Growing
the
Samoan.
FT podcast is gonna
That's
be.
good.
I
Yeah.
mean, no, it is. We made it. We made it, hun. We made it to the FT podcast. That was my
Right.
whole dream. We did it. I can,
The Faithful
Right.
Thomas
Hey, be
podcast.
careful. You might be the next person. So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Me
I
neither.
don't know about that.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, man, I really appreciate you guys
Anytime,
taking
man.
out some time and jumping on the podcast. And so I'm so glad to promote you guys' Growing Samoan podcast. You
Yeah.
can catch them on YouTube and wherever you listen to your podcast
Thank you,
Thank
at.
you too,
Hines.
brother.
Thank you
Thank
guys
you.
so
Appreciate
much.
everything.
Yeah,
All right,
All
definitely.
man.
right. I'll see you guys soon.
You take care. Thanks again.
Bye,
All right.
soy
Take
Bye.
care. Pa. Pa.